What's going on, everybody? It is, the date today is Tuesday morning, January the 7th, 2019. 2020. 2020. That is the date today. And this is the first show. This is the first show of my new live stream. That is the first show of my new live stream. The music is still going. Yes, it was going. I was talking over the music, folks. Talking over the music. Hey, the music's still going! What the hell are you doing? Yeah, it's because I'm talking over the music. And it's 2020. So this angle that you're seeing me right now, kind of closer than you normally see me, is because I was having an issue with some technical issue that's happening. So in future shows, this is you'll get me further away, kind of like how I normally am. But for the purposes of this show and time, for some reason there's a technical issue, and I'm hoping to have that worked out for Thursday morning show. But nonetheless, you can see me. That's the most important thing. And it is, this is my first show of McRae Live. I want to thank you for joining me. How this is going to work is, for those of you that are not new to my channel, this is kind of how I'm doing this. For those of you that are new, this is how I'm doing this. So, over the last couple of years, I've been doing the standalone videos, right? Where I pre-record them, I upload them, you watch them, you enjoy them or you hate them, whatever way you want to go. And, that takes up a lot of time. And especially as I get busier and as the channel gets busier. And of course I have, I'm in, development on It's Me, Billy. I've got Dylan's New Nightmare coming up. I got all the voiceover work that I do. And then the stuff that I do here on the channel for you guys, Patreon, all that kind of stuff. So I find that it's getting easier, or I think it's going to get easier for me to do these live shows. And I want to do them, I'd love to be able to do them every day, but that's not possible at the moment. So what I'm going to do is I've decided to do them 3 days a week to start. Every Tuesday morning at 11 o'clock a.m., which is where we are here. We started a bit late today because I was trying to... I was trying to figure out this framing issue. For some reason, it's fucking up. But anyway, and then Thursday morning and Friday morning at 11 a.m. That's the direction I want to go. And, that means that if something drops, unless it's really like, holy shit, then I will jump on and do a video. But if it's something that I feel can wait until I do my show, like, for example, let's say something drops Monday afternoon, right? I'm like, well, okay, I'll just talk about it on Tuesday morning show. Do you know what I mean? If something drops on Wednesday, I'll talk about it on Thursday morning show. If something drops on Thursday, I'll talk about it on Friday morning show. But what happens if something drops on Tuesday? You don't have a show on Wednesday! Well, no, I know, but then I will sort of, make an executive... I will make an executive decision on whether or not, I need to jump into my studio and upload something right away, or if it's something that can wait till Thursday morning show. So that's sort of how I'm going to kind of move this channel in that direction. Of course, here on McRae Live, I am also hoping to get some guests on as well, which will be a lot of fun. But for this first episode, and in case you're just joining me, like I said, I realize that I'm a bit closer to the camera than I normally am, but that's because I was having a tech issue that just seems to not work itself right before we're about to go live. Isn't that how it always is? You're like, okay, this is great. Oh my God! And it's right before you're about to go live. But anyway, so on this first episode of McRae Live, it's great to see everybody in the chat room. I will get to you guys in just a moment, of course, to talk shop with you guys. But of course, on these McRae Live shows, I'm going to have a main topic that I want to talk about off the top, and sometimes two, depending on what's going on in the world of movies, right? So today I want to talk about specifically Black Christmas 2019, and the reason why I want to talk about this is because I've been meaning to talk about this for a while, and you guys have heard me mention this before. Like, you've heard me sort of talk about this, briefly mention sort of my thoughts on Two Dudes and Some Bullshit, and some other things as well. But I want to talk about this because like it or hate it, loathe it or love it, whether it's for you or not, the Black Christmas 2019 film, I believe, has done a disservice to itself, not just to Black Christmas fans, but to itself. Now, it's no surprise, and it is no secret that the very, obvious political overtones, undertones, that Sophia Takal, I believe I'm saying her last name right. She's the co-writer and the director of the movie. What it is what it is. Like all those things that you thought about, the political angle in terms of the Me Too movement and campus culture and rape culture and women rising up and all this kind of jazz. That is what it is. And that is even what the director of the film has said. Yes, that is what it is. And I'm a huge Black Christmas fan, as you guys know. And when I read the it was more of a glorified log line for the film when that was released, I guess in the summer or whatever it was, beginning of June, somewhere around there. I thought to myself, this doesn't sound like Black Christmas. Has the right setting, but it doesn't sound sort of like what we want it to be. And it was the last sentence in there that made me sort of worried. And I'm paraphrasing, but it was something to the effect of, but this generation's young women aren't going to take any shit or something like that. It wasn't exactly that, but it was alluding to that. And Sophia Takal did an interview. She's done a bunch of them. And she did an interview with IndieWire. And I'm going to read a bit of that to you. Because I want to talk about it. Now, first and foremost, I do want to say, well, not first, I guess I've been yapping for a while here, but I do want to preface my thoughts here by saying that I believe we can have a mature adult conversation about this. This doesn't have to resort to name calling or, to the he said, she said, and all the crap that you see in today's political climate. We can have a mature conversation about this. And that is sort of the angle I want to tackle this from. Because, that I think is the most important thing, especially when you are talking about things that people are emotionally attached to, they feel very passionate about. I think it's important that we have a calm, cool, and collected conversation about it. So let me read to you here a bit of what Sophia Takal had to say with IndieWire. Now, it's a bit of a long interview, but I'll try to sort of get to the main points here. She says, IndieWire is saying Takal's new film, her first studio-backed outing after indies like Green and Always Shine, and her second foray into the Blumhouse milieu after directing an episode of its Into the Dark series last year, utilizes the key elements of Bob Clark, the director of the original film, of Clark's feature, Sorority House, Christmas Break, and Crazed Killer. I read that now. This is coming from the author of the article, obviously, but Clark's utilizes the key elements of Clark's feature: Sorority House, Christmas Break, Crazed Killer. Well, those are key elements, but they're not the key elements. They are part of the key elements. So I would remove the word "the" from there. And I know what you might be thinking, that maybe I'm nitpicking here, but I'm going to dive into this because it's really important. And then she says, and turns it into something fresh and exceedingly timely. She didn't have a lot of time to do it, as Blumhouse hired her for the gig in February of 2019, with an appropriate Friday, December 13th release date already set. And then Takal says, basically, Blumhouse's directive to me at the very beginning was, you can do whatever you want. And then I came back and I was like, I would like to make a movie about 3 middle-aged women. She laughs, of course, because that was a joke. And they're like, no. Find the 3-5 elements of the original that define the movie to you, and then take those elements in it and make a movie of that. For me, she says, it was the characters, the artfulness of the violence, the sexual politics, and politics of the movie. I don't want to remake a movie that's already great and just make it again. here's the thing, okay? I read that, and in principle, I understand what she's saying. But here's the issue I take with this, Sophia. The original Black Christmas film, a lot of people seem to think that the subtext of the main character of Jess being pregnant and wanting to have an abortion was somehow a political message. Look, I mean, it was about 5 years after Canada had, I think they had, it was 1974 was the original. I believe it was 5 years after Canada legalized therapeutic abortion or something like that. I know in the States it was a hot button issue at that time as well. So, I mean, it's not that she's wrong in that, but it's subtext, okay? And it's used mainly to show that Jess is strong, independent. She's capable of making her own decisions. It's not the overarching theme of the movie. It's not really driving a message home other than to show that this woman is capable of making strong, independent decisions on her own. And, you know, it's the fact that Jess is pregnant with a baby is almost irrelevant to the rest of the movie, because you can remove that subtext from her character and easily replace it with something else, and the movie stays exactly the same. And that is how you know that the abortion angle that was written into the movie was complimentary. It was like, you know what, let's have this because it's, you know, it's kind of a big deal, but let's use it to complement her character, to flesh out her character a bit more. But it's not, there's no subtext of the entire film about abortion or, you know, whether that is something that you know, it's not a fundamental part of the narrative. What Sophia Takal has done with, and her co-writer, April Wolf, I believe her name is, what they've done with the Black Christmas remake is they've made it all about that. Not abortion, but all about the Me Too movement, rape culture, campus culture, and they've used the setting of Black Christmas as the backdrop to tell your message. Now, let me first say this, okay, as well. Misogyny, sexism, it absolutely exists in the world as we know. It absolutely exists in the entertainment industry. I've seen it. I know people who've experienced it. It absolutely exists. The issue I take with it is the problem I see happening, and this isn't across the board, but the problem I see happening with these types of things is the arbitrary nature in which it's presented. So, you know, I will, like, if people can point to specifics, specific people, specific incidents, specific this, you know, that, I will stand with you, beside you, and call out the bullshit. I think anybody would. And because it's important that that we're able to identify the specifics of what is going on. Because if you don't identify it, then anybody can say anything without evidence. So it's really important that if you want to drive your message home in terms of doing a movie like Black Christmas 2019, that you allow the film to stand on its own. Because right now, it gets lost. It angers everybody because it feels like you're exploiting the Black Christmas IP for the sake of delivering a message. And it's very overt. I mean, when you watch the film, this is the movie. This is what it's saying. And there's nothing wrong with that in and of itself. But then, shouldn't the movie then be its own thing? If you really want it to stand on its own, if you really want to drive a message home because you feel passionately about it, whether I agree with it or not isn't the issue. Whether I think it's the right thing to do or not isn't the issue. If you want to make a movie about this, with this message, helping young girls to see certain things, which is, don't kid yourself, that's why the movie was rated PG-13 and not R, is so they could get more young girls into the theater. I mean, that was basically all but, said verbatim. If you want to do that, that's okay. Then make a movie that is really your own. Take this premise and make a film that's really your own, because there's an expectation when you make a Black Christmas film, when you are making a Black Christmas movie that already has a history and mythology, that has, for better or worse, a remake in 2006, which was dog shit, but the remake did honor, in some ways, the mythology. Of course, it took it and ran with it and opened up things that even the original was not doing, but it was expanding on that. The 2019 film has nothing to do with it. There's a subtitle on one of the posters that says Slay Girls. And that really should have been the name of your movie, because it could mean many different things, right? Slay is S-L-A-Y. So it could mean slaying the patriarchy, slaying rape culture, slaying camp. Whether I agree with it or not isn't the fucking issue. The issue is that if you want your message, because if your message falls on deaf ears, okay? If it doesn't get out there, if everybody's angry because it feels too preachy and synthetically created and not organic for the sake of driving a message home, then it's all but lost and it almost feels wasted. Because at the end of the day, it's about results, right? If you want to make a movie, it's about that has this message to it. Have it stand on its own. Blumhouse should have said, let's make a movie that is original, that isn't using the Black Christmas IP, that is completely original. And then also too, Sophia and her co-writer may have actually felt even a little more liberated, because they don't have to worry about at some point in there, we got to remember it's Black Christmas, we have to do this, we have to do that. It might have, the setting may have changed. You may have been able to still set it on Christmas, but I think you would have felt a little more leeway to run with it, and then your message may have actually been better received. I mean, right now there's an expectation with a movie called Black Christmas that when you go into it, your message, and you're doing a disservice to it. Actually, when you watch the movie in and of itself, you could watch and go, well, this isn't a bad little film. But unfortunately, psychologically, the viewers are like, what the fuck is this? This isn't Black Christmas. This has nothing to do with Black Christmas. And of course, look, Blumhouse and the producers and the writers say, well, but it's a reinvention and it's this. Well, I get that, but there's a problem that when your political message is the driving force of the narrative and isn't the subtext like it was in the original, it's just complementary, then you run the risk of becoming preachy. Nobody likes to be told what to think, right? You don't like to be told what to think. You feel that, no, I can think what I want. I'll listen to Dave, and whether I agree with him or not is entirely up to me, right? That's up to you. Like you've heard me say 1,000 times. I always hope that you agree with me. I mean, that's important, right? But at the end of the day, I don't lose sleep over it if you don't. I don't mean that to be rude or anything, but it's just because I'm confident in what I like or what I believe in, so should you. And if we agree, then that's always fun. We're like, hey, we agree. Oh, it's totally awesome, right? But it's also cool if we don't agree. That's okay too. But at the end of the day, this Black Christmas has done a disservice. It was a mistake. It wasn't a mistake to hire Sophia Takal. It wasn't a mistake to deliver a message. It was a mistake to deliver a message like this in Black Christmas, because your message is it feels shoehorned in. And when your political message takes sort of the main, the main overarch of the entire narrative, then you go from, passionate to preachy. And when you start getting preachy, or it feels like it's a little preachy, and you're not hiding the fact that it is, people can get angry. Listen, I know women that don't like the film. It's true. I know that might be hard to believe, but I know a lot of women that don't like to be catered to. A lot of women that don't like to be told how to think. You know, that don't like the condescending, pretentious sort of, you know, that you sometimes get with these sort of movements. You know, but that doesn't mean that misogyny and sexism and this kind of stuff doesn't exist within the entertainment industry or on campus or in whatever. Of course it does. But we have to be able to identify it. We can't just say it exists, you know, in the ether. Well, okay, but if you want me to help or if you want me to stand beside, we have to be able to identify, because that's really the only true way that we can send a message and be able to hone in on the specifics. Saying that something exists in and of itself doesn't do anything. You know, we have to say that, and then we got to start compartmentalizing, and you know. It's just, look, I feel sorry for Sophia in a lot of ways, because I think her heart was in the right place. And I think April Wolf, I think that's the co-writer's name. I think at the end of the day, their hearts are in the right place. And there might be a cool movie in there somewhere, but they've done a disservice to themselves. Blumhouse has done a disservice to itself, because the movie bombed. It did, which was no surprise to me or you, to anybody. But it's done a disservice to themselves because it cannot stand on its own. I mean, what is Blumhouse saying? Are you saying that we don't have confidence in Sophia Takal and April Wolf? God, I hope that's her name. her co-writer. We don't have confidence in you that you can make a movie completely original and stand on its own, so we're going to have to give you the Black Christmas IP just to help get butts in the seats. Is that what you're saying? I mean, God forbid they say that, right? Is that what you're saying? You know, I mean, come on, you know, have confidence. I mean, if you're going to do it, just get rid of Black Christmas and call it Slay Girls, call it something else, man. Give them the free reign to make it a truly original piece, to allow it to truly stand on its own. And I think that is really important, because right now, the message, whatever Sophia Takal and her co-writer were going for, it's lost. It's lost in the preachiness that it feels like. It's lost in the fact that it's not Black Christmas. It's not what we know. You know, regardless of how they try to spin it, it's lost. And I cannot help but feel that this came to be because of Jason Blum's comments last year, which he should not have had to apologize for. There was no need for Jason Blum to apologize. No need at all. Do you remember these? He said this. He said, when asked about females directing with Blumhouse, he said, we're always trying to do that, Blum said. We're not trying to do it because of recent events. Me Too, all that kind of jazz. We've always been trying. There are not a lot of female directors, period, and even less who are inclined to do horror. I'm a massive admirer of the Babadook director Jennifer Kent. I've offered her every movie we've had available. She's turned me down every time. Now, whenever you usually see that quote from Blum, people calling him out on it, they conveniently leave that last sentence out, right? Because obviously that doesn't bode well for, you know, calling him out, because, he actually has tried to. Now, Blum should not have had to, where are we here? There we are. Trying to get myself back in shape there. Jason Blum should not have had to apologize for that. He shouldn't have had to apologize for that at all. Of course he did, because I understand why he did. Do I believe that he's actually sorry for it when he goes home at night and has supper with his family and his kids? No, not at all. No, not at all. He was playing the political rhetoric game, as I like to say. And I don't believe he should have had to apologize that for all. Listen, if you want to talk about facts, there are less female directors in Hollywood than there are male directors. That's a fact. That doesn't mean that female directors suck. I'm not saying that. There are some amazing women directors and writers and producers. I mean, whether you like her or not because of Star Wars, one of the greatest producers in the history of Hollywood. The history of Hollywood is Kathleen Kennedy. Look at her resume. One of the greatest, most successful executive producers of all time. This is not a male-female issue in terms of that. It's about numbers, and he wasn't wrong. And I have no doubt that he's probably reached out to others. And look, I mean, let me just say that it was something that I don't think he needed to apologize for. And I think that he felt that by, was Black Christmas and the hiring of Sophia Takal shortly after these comments were made? Because these comments were made in, where were they made here? This article is from October 17th, 2018. So it was made in October of 2018. And then he hires Sophia Takal in February of 2019. I'm not saying it is. I'm just saying that maybe it was a bit of damage control. Maybe he wanted to, do something fairly fast that had a female director attached to it, and Sophia was on board, and then all of a sudden she's like, "Hey, I want to do this, 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 and this," and he was like, "Yeah, okay, just do it, do that. That'll make me look good." That's entirely possible too. It seems a little strange that he has this. He's called out for this, which something that it doesn't need to be called out at all. And then all of a sudden, he's the timing seems very suspect. But the fact of the matter is let me just go on here. Where is I want to make sure I get this right. Okay, sorry. I just want to make sure that I've got everything right. Yeah, I was right. April Wolfe was her co-writer. Takal's take on Black Christmas, written alongside film critic and fellow film critic and fellow screenwriter April Wolfe, is set at a bucolic New England college during holiday break, as a mass killer goes after two different sets of sorority sisters at the center. Okay, hang on a second. I wrote a bunch of different versions of What Black Christmas before I brought April on. But I was basically writing a straight-ahead slasher movie with a little bit of campus sexual politics thrown in, Takal said. But there was something that really didn't feel good to me about just making a regular slasher movie, especially in 2019, in the throes of the Me Too era. And there was just something that felt... let me see here, about making a movie with the primary entertainment when watching women getting killed. Yeah. So look, again, there's nothing wrong. Like everything that she's saying, I get it. I'm like, yeah, I get it. Okay. I get it, but it's disappointing to me that it was used in this manner. It was used in that manner because it's done a disservice to itself. Your message, Jason Blum, your message, Sophia, and that's not her fault, really, at the end of the day. But your message was lost. Blum should have said, no, we're not doing Black Christmas. Let's give them something else. Let's give them because that's how you raise people up. It's like this thing where it's like, let's have a Jane Bond. Let's have an Indiana Jane. No, let's not do that. Okay, because what are you saying? That women can't have their own shit? Is that what you're saying? And they need to ride on the coattails of proven IPs started by men? Is that what you're saying? That doesn't sound very good, does it? That coming out of my mouth, saying it so blunt like that sounds very like, holy shit, is that what it is? No. That's not what it is. Well, somebody could spin it that way. Think about it. Somebody could spin it that way, right? The fact of the matter is that if you really want to raise women up, if you really want to you give them the opportunity to show them that they can stand on their own. That's what you do. That's empowering. You give them the opportunity to say, "Hey, we don't need to have Indiana Jane. We don't need to have James or I was going to say James Jane. Jane Bond or, anything, throw along the list, Michelle Myers or what. I mean, you don't need that. It's you create your own identity and show that we can do this just. We are great writers. We're great directors. We're great innovators. We're great thinkers. We're passionate. We can, and we can work with you guys. I mean, guys like men, and men can work with us, and we can, that doesn't mean there aren't differences. I'm not saying there are not differences. There are. Of course there are. There's differences between men and women and how our brains work and how we compartmentalize stuff. And, of course, we cannot pretend that there are no differences, but it's about utilizing the strengths, right? That's what it's about. So when I see this, it makes me feel sad. And that's why I said it kind of makes me feel sorry for Sophia and April, because whatever you were trying to do, it fell apart because Jason Blum and Blumhouse wanted to capitalize on Black Christmas and we're reinventing it and we're letting a woman do it. So what? I mean, so... it would be one thing if there wasn't a political message to it, if there wasn't a political sort of driving force behind the narrative. That would be different. That would be different, because if you're just hiring a female director to do a remake of Black Christmas, okay, cool. But because it is this kind of movie, really, that's what it is. It could be called anything at the end of the day. I think it's so important that because the political message is your driving force, you give it the opportunity to stand on its own. And if it fails, well, then it fails. But but there's no excuses then, right? You can't just say, well, it failed because those guys didn't like it because we were, remaking their beloved Black Christmas. There's no excuses then, right? If it's a success, it's a success of what they did with it. If it's not a success, it's not a success because of what they did with it, right? There's no excuses. So that's what disappoints me about it. And that is ultimately why Black Christmas failed. It was preachy. It was the expectations were that this was a Black Christmas remake, and they took everything, the mythology, Billy, Agnes, everything that made Black Christmas, and threw it out the window. And the original does not have a political narrative. It has a political subtext to a character to complement the character of Jess, to show that she's independent and capable of making her own decisions. It's not driving the 1974 film. Now, Billy is very sexual, yes, and he's borderline. Well, not. I mean, he is. He's psychotic. He probably has bipolar. He's probably got a split personality. He suffers from. Run the gamut. Just all sorts of shit. But it's not the driving force of it. You don't walk away from the movie going, "Wow, what a message!" It's not what it is. It's more subtle. It's nuanced, right? It's presented in a way that is that if there is anything there would leave with you into your subconscious. And that's why it feels more organic. This movie is just blah. It's just here. It's telling you, oh, here's what you have to think. You know what? And we're going to make it PG-13 to get all the little girls into the theater. You have to think this way. This is how you should think. And it's like, what are you doing? Just make a good movie. Make a good movie. Tell a good story. Okay, and let the chips fall where they may. That's how I feel about it. And this has nothing to do with not believing that this culture exists, because it does. Look, I've worked in the entertainment industry now for nearly 20 years, and I've seen it. I've known people who've experienced it. It sometimes happens with, the Harvey Weinstein thing was not a surprise to me, because he's an old fogey, you sometimes do see it with older men who are, set in their ways and all that kind of shit. Not all the time. There are younger guys that do it too, but I've seen it. My buddy Bruce has seen it. He's worked in the entertainment industry now since, nearly 20 years. We've had conversations about it. It exists. So then it comes down to, okay, well, we want to deliver a message. What's the right way to go about doing that? I know I'm repeating myself here, but I just can't stress how important I feel it is that when you have, if you feel this is so important, why would you arbitrarily just I mean, did you really think this was going to fly? Or do you see it as an opportunity, as it's a safe thing, right? Because then we can just say, well, there's a bunch of, sexist men out there that didn't like the movie, or they just weren't ready for a new Black Christmas. It has nothing to do with that. Nobody, including yourself, those who work at Blumhouse, who a lot of women do too, nobody likes to be told what to think. They don't. They just want it presented in a nuanced, subtle way, unless it's a documentary. Listen, if you're making a documentary about it, that's different, right? But this is a horror movie. The horror and the creepiness and that should have been first. Because that's why we go to the movies. We go to the movies to be, and especially narrative films. We go to the movies to be entertained, and if there's a message in there, that's great, but it should be nuanced. It shouldn't be smacking you in the face and telling you how to feel about something. So that's how I feel about it. And it just makes me sad, because Black Christmas 2019 may have been a little cool movie. If it was called Slay Girls, you would have known, okay, I know what it is. I know what to expect, and that's cool. But unfortunately, it will forever, your message, Blumhouse and Sophia and April, unfortunately never got through. I mean, it would have for some people, but on it failed, and it failed because of the things that I've talked about here. And it would have been better if it was just a standalone film. Give them something where they can truly stand on their own. They don't need Black Christmas to stand on their own, do they? No! Give them something, right? Look at Jennifer Kent, or whatever her name is, that did that shit with the Babadook or Duke or whatever. Hey, right? That's how you do it. Anyways, I could go on and on and on here, but it's just, to end, I just want people to know that, it's not about these things not existing. They do exist, but if you want to really drive a message home, we first have to be able to identify what it is, where it exists, how it is, and then talk about it. Because the political climate and its course reaching over, into the entertainment industry, it can become toxic, and I just want everybody to try and have a good conversation about it. Like, the people that watch me in this chat room are 98% of the time just great. You know what I mean? And, every now and then you get a troll that comes in and, wants to be an ass, and it's just because they have the IQ of a donut or something. But at the end of the day, I think it's so important that we're able to have a conversation about this. I don't mean in a kumbaya way, like we live in a perfect world, but in a way that is just like, hey, because it's show business, right? That's one thing I forgot to mention earlier. Listen, this is show business. If you want to make money off of this Black Christmas remake, if I was in the writer's room, I would have been like, Jason, I don't think this is the best. Look, I know you want to make a movie with a female director and you specialize in horror. Okay, great. And you want to make a movie that has this political message to it. Okay, all right. Okay, cool. Okay. I don't think we should call it Black Christmas. I'm just saying, I think you're going to piss a lot of people off. I think it's going to be confusing because she's written a script that has nothing to do with Black Christmas. Literally nothing. Nothing. Other than being on a campus. Well, so what? There's tons of movies that take place on campus. That's why I said when the author of the article said the three key elements are Christmas. Well, that's a key element. Campus and a deranged killer. Well, but that in and of itself isn't what made Black Christmas Black Christmas. Anyway. Get all fired up here with this kind of thing. It's just important to me that we really do our best to try and have these types of conversations like I'm doing here. In a professional, calm, as calm as I can be, cool and collected way. I'm not calling anybody out. I'm not saying that certain things don't exist because I've seen it. I have. But I think how you raise not just women up, but how you raise children up, how you raise men up, how you raise people up, is you give them the opportunities to prove themselves standing on their own. That doesn't mean that depending on the stage they're at in their careers or their lives, that they don't have help or advice and things like that. I don't mean that. I don't mean just go, fucking knock yourselves out. That's not what I'm saying, right? Nuance people, right? I'm just simply saying that it disappoints me when I see this cry for more female this, more female that, which is amazing. but yet then you're giving them things that men have created, and it's kind of like, well, wait a minute. And listen, it's a business, and that should tell you something. There's a reason why they do that. There's a reason why we should have a Jane Bond, an Indiana, Jane, a Black Christmas director, because statistics also show too that a lot of the female type knockoffs, like Tomb Raider being a knockoff of Indiana Jones per se, they don't do as well. But it's not because they're female. It's because the movies and the stories are not that engaging. Now, some people are going to like it, but we're talking about in a broad sense, right? More of a collective sort of agreement. I mean, listen, let's not forget, you hear it all the time. Sigourney Weaver was like the original fucking badass, man. Then comes along, Linda Hamilton, and then you got all the girls in the horror movies, from Heather Langenkamp to Jamie Lee Curtis to Neve Campbell but they're good movies, you see. The common denominator between Aliens, Halloween, Scream, and Elm Street, they're good movies with really interesting antagonists and interesting psychological, layers and nuances and premise, and it doesn't feel preachy. It's the same. It's what I loved about the movie Us. Now, I didn't like the movie Us as much as I liked Get Out. Okay. But what I did like about the movie Us was that it was a black family that just was a black family, which the movie itself, it could have been a white family. It could have been an Italian family. It could have been anybody. It could have been a gay family. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered. I loved that the premise was just, they were black. They were just like you and me. And I was like, yes, and because we need more of that. We need more of that kind of thing. I think that's so important. And I thought, now, unfortunately, I didn't like the movie. I thought it was okay, but I didn't like the movie as much as I liked Get Out, which did have a racial undertone to it, or at points overtones as well. So I certainly like Get Out better. But I love that kind of thing. I love seeing, yes, this is just a black family that is, going through this horror thing. That's just awesome, right? Doesn't matter if they're white or green or blue. It's the story. It's the story. The story is always, when in any motion picture, it is the number one most important thing about anything. That is your foundation. When you're building a house, that's your foundation. It is the story. And then everything else on top of that, your cast, your crew, your lighting, your DP, which is part of the crew, everything else becomes your walls and your, insulation and all. But if you don't have a strong foundation, right, which is your story, then the house is going to crumble. It doesn't matter how good your director is. It doesn't matter how good your writer is. It doesn't matter how good your DP is. It doesn't matter how good your actors are. If your script and your story are not strong, we're not talking about everything's got to be fucking, The Godfather, but if your story is not strong, if it can't stand on its own, you're in trouble. And people see through that. Audiences today are smarter. And I can tell you from experience, it's not just white men who didn't like Black Christmas 2019. I've spoken to quite a few women and non-white individuals who thought it was garbage, who felt like they were being pandered to. And people aren't stupid today. They want a good movie, a good story with good characters that female or male, that can stand on their own, and it can be organic, right? It feels organic. It feels earned, not shoehorned in, for the sake of delivering a political message. But if that is what you want to do, which it's your right to do it. If you want to write a movie that has a big political, message, and it's really obvious, even with the first quote that comes up on the screen, it basically, tells you what you're in for. You have a right to do that, but then give them the opportunity to allow them to stand on its own. Because if you don't, that tells me you don't believe in them. And mind you, it's a business, right? And they want to make money. But then if you want to make money, then you should be thinking about ways to deliver a great story with great characters that it's like, oh, I mean, listen, you never know if a movie's going to be a hit. There are some films that they didn't think was going to be a hit was a huge hit. Some films they thought would be a hit that wasn't. But you want to give yourself the best probability of success. And that starts with the story and characters, not with a political message that is no doubt is going to rub people the wrong way. Did it rub everybody the wrong way? No, it didn't. There are some people that welcomed it. And I've seen it, and I can tell you that there's some interesting things in the movie. And that's what makes me sad. Because I sit there and I think, if only this had been its own thing. If that doesn't mean it would have made $100 million at the box office, but now it's forever tainted with this attached to it. And that's what's that's what's disappointing to me, because I'm not here to say that Sophia and April are not talented. I'm not here to say that, Jason Blum's a piece of shit and all that. I'm not here to say that at all. I don't believe that at all. I'm just saying that I think they put their political views before the narrative and the story. And that's what ended up happening. And it comes off as cheap and pretentious and preachy. And unfortunately, it just didn't work. You've done yourself a disservice. The movie has done itself a disservice. Not everybody will agree with me. That's okay. But I just hope that after watching my rant here for the last 45 minutes or so, that you guys will at least be able, for those of you that may not agree with me, I've given you something to think about at the very least. Because I think it's important that we're able to have these types of conversations in a calm, cool, and collected environment, especially amongst, all the rage. Now, this video is not going to get 1 million views because I'm not ranting and raving and swearing and calling people out by name. But hopefully it will touch and hit the right people where they will able to think, you know what, that's a good point. I didn't think of that, or no, I don't agree with that, and here's why. So that's how it's just disappointing, because there was so much potential there to actually deliver something that would have gotten you the results you wanted, but it didn't. And that's why. Let's go over to the chat room. Let's see here. Super chat came in from Frank Riker. Thanks, buddy. Good luck, Dave. Thank you. Can't we say there is sometimes a counter female character to a male one? Tomb Raider for Indiana Jones, La Femme Nikita for Bond. Oh, I agree. Yeah, no, there are. And it comes to, look, it traditionally these roles are, women still have a long way to go in terms of being able to establish these types of characters as organic, right? Like when we see men lifting things, doing things, running, jumping, it's more believable psychologically because we know that men, by and large, right, are biologically built to be physically stronger and bigger than women. That doesn't mean that there are not some physically built women that can kick my ass, because there are. But I'm just simply saying, biologically, generally, that's how we're built, right? Women are stronger. They have they're stronger internally. They live longer. They bear children. Whereas men don't. We're the bronze, right? And I think over the years, it's always been about men. I mean, you go back to the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, in these action main type of roles, it was all the time usually men. So and it felt organic, it felt real because men are bigger and stronger and faster and, all these kinds of things. And then, especially because of Ripley and Alien, which was fantastic, we started to kind of, and even before that as well, but that was really one that kind of was like, oh, hang on a sec here. And, but it's about delivering good stories. You see, men can be in shitty action movies doing stunts and lifting things and shooting and stuff because we believe that the man is capable of doing that because it's a man, right? So the movie can be absolute trash, but we never once think, oh, come on, right? Because it's a guy. Women, on the other hand, there's a bit of a uphill battle, right? So what really is important for women action heroes is a great story, because then that gets you over the hump kind of thing, right? With some really great stories. And it gets you over the hump and it's like, wow, this is fuck. Like Aliens, right? Terminator 2, right? And then it's like, you think, wow, women can fuck, like I'm buying into this shit, right? Because you got to get past that that psychological mental block that we've seen for so many years. And look, it's always about great stories no matter what. Unfortunately, men have the upper hand that they can deliver a subpar, shitty action movie, and we still buy it because it's a dude ripped and, Women, on the other hand, need that extra to just kind of get them over, to get us to pay attention. That's what I'm saying, right? To get the broader movie-going audience to pay attention, you got to deliver a good story, because there's a lot of noise out there right now, right? That doesn't mean that eventually women couldn't be in subpar action movies and we're like, yeah, let's fucking do it. I'm in. Who cares, right? That doesn't mean that. It just means that there's a lot of noise. So you got to deliver these really good stories with these great characters to make a lot of people go, fuck, shit, holy shit, right? And then you're over that hump. And it's so important. It's so important. But there are wonderful examples of strong female characters in great movies with great stories. They're not nearly as much of as men, of course, because it's predominantly and has been for a long time a male-dominated industry. I see it. I mean, it's all over the place. But certainly, I want to see more of that. I think women can be strong, they can be sexy, they can be sophisticated and powerful and smart, in a role that's just like, fuck, yeah, I love that. But it's about the story. It's about the character. Like it's too bad it didn't do well, because I really enjoyed the remake of Girl with a Dragon Tattoo with Daniel Craig and Rooney Mara. Really liked that. David Fincher directed it. I thought it was a fantastic movie. And now, she was a broken character. She had a lot of layers to her, but she was a fascinating character. Now, the original Swedish films are great. So if you haven't seen the original of those, you got to check them out. Subtitled, but check them out. But the Rooney Mara one, I thought was great. And they didn't do another one because I think Daniel Craig wanted too much money, as far as I can remember. And, but I thought it was great. And, I don't believe, and listen, I can't speak for everybody. Does racism exist? Yes, of course. Does sexism exist? Yes, of course. Are there men out there that don't want to see, women directing in powerful roles and blah? Of course it exists. But I would like to believe, because of the people that I've talked to and some of the comments that I'm even seeing here in the chat, I think most men don't feel that way. I think most men are dying for a strong female character like a James Bond, like an Indiana Jones, right? We're going to see if Black Widow can stand on her own with the new, standalone movie that's coming out this year, right? Because so far she's been a complimentary character. So we'll see how she does on her own. I saw the trailer. I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah. Is the story going to be good? Well, we're going to find out. Men want this. Good, normal men want this. But it's got to be a good story for the general audiences, because there's an uphill battle. You got to get past that stereotype. But yeah, fuck yeah, man. Let's do it. I'm fucking ready. Let's see here. More of the chat. What do we got here? Jason Wiley says, women can be strong and feminine. Gal did this with Wonder Woman. There you go. Brie with Captain Marvel, and the other hand did not. Listen, I agree with you. Now, I'm not a superhero guy, as you know, so I've only seen about 3 out of the 22 movies that Marvel put out. But you're not wrong, and they have to take that idea and make an original character that can stand on its own, that is not against the backdrop of 15 movies that came. Look, Captain Marvel was going to be $1 billion film in its sleep, because of it's riding on the coattails of the MCU, right? Same with Black Widow, right? Same with not necessarily Wonder Woman, but Wonder Woman, she's got that history, right? To create a truly original character that has no source material, no mythology, it's not coming from anywhere, that's difficult to do. And because this is show business, naturally, studios think, hey, let's make a Jane Bond. Let's make an Indiana Jane, because they want to ride the coattails of the proven IP. Unfortunately, like I said to you during my rant portion of the video, or the discussion portion, let's say, that's not actually raising women up. It's actually not. It looks like it on a surface kind of thing, but you're not really doing that, because you're allowing the IP that was made by men, starring men to help it. It's not really doing that. What you really want to do is you want to create a really fucking amazing character, original character that nobody's ever fucking heard of, that's got a great story, a great cast, great filmmakers attached to it, and let the chips fall where they may. I believe that men will come to the theater, and women in droves, if a movie is released like a, now I don't mean it doesn't have any men in it, but I'm just saying if there's a movie that is anchored by a woman, like a T2, of course you got Arnold in there as well, and certainly he is the draw, but listen, one of the reasons why T3 and Terminator Salvation and Terminator Genesis didn't do well, one of the reasons, they're shitty movies, but one of the reasons is because Linda Hamilton wasn't there. Now you could say, well, the Linda Hamilton returned in a movie this past year and it didn't do well. Well, yes, because let's be honest, there's an expiry date on everything. Okay, it doesn't matter how successful you are or if you're a legend or not. There's an expiry date. Be honest, Harrison Ford is my favorite actor of all time. He's a legend. Indiana Jones 5 now? I don't know, right? Look at Rambo with Sly. Look at Arnold. Every movie that Arnold has done, outside of The Expendables, where he's an ensemble player, every movie he's done since he's returned from Governor hasn't done that well. But it's Arnold. Yeah, but even Arnold, there's an expiry date for everybody and everything. But I'm just simply saying that had T3 had Linda Hamilton in it, whoa, right? Look out. So, but that's how you do it. You create original characters and you give them something to stand on that they can make their own. You know what I mean? Because then there's no excuses, you see. If it's successful, you can't just say, oh, well, she's Indiana Jane. She just did that because of the IP. It's successful. Well, of course it made, $500 million at the box office because of the IP, right? Oh, it failed. Well, it failed because all these men didn't want to go out and see it because it was Indiana Jane. You can't use those excuses when you create an original character. And that's why I think that's so important. Let's see here. All Up in Video says 2019 Rambo was actually good. I still haven't seen it. I heard it was actually decent, but the fact is that Arnie and Sly are not the draws they used to be anymore, right? I mean, let's face it. We're 40 I don't know how old that you are, but I'm a 40-year-old man, right? A lot of us in the chat room are into our 30s and 40s, maybe even 50s, right? I mean, a lot of the movie-going audience today, is younger, right? And there are a lot of, my best friend's kids. We're not rushing out to see if Rambo Last Blood had come out when I was a teenager, I would have been first in fucking line to see it, and so would you, right? My buddies' kids who are 18 and 16 are like, Rambo? No. It would be like the movies they watch, like our movies. It's so funny because it's relative, right? Us watching, okay. I remember when I got his kids to sit down and try to watch The Goonies, okay? And his kids were like, this is boring. This is old. This is really old and boring. And I'm standing there. This is like 10 years ago. And I'm standing there. I'm like, what? It's fucking amazing. But then I have to remember that for them watching The Goonies, which is 30 years old now, for them watching The Goonies, 35 years old, 5 years old. For them watching The Goonies now would be like us in the 80s watching something from the 40s. You know what I mean? It's like what the fuck is this shit? Boring, right? Because of what the kids are used to today and the fast-paced sort of presentation, the glitz, the glam, the energy of a lot of the movies that they go and see. And it looks old. It looks like an old movie, and the practical effects look cheesy, and so it's crazy. It's crazy. Wild stuff. Let's see here. Blu-ray Addict says, I like Nick Stahl as John Connor. Was he the one in Terminator 3? I forget that guy's name. Karen Allen in Raiders. Yeah, that's true. Karen Allen in Raiders. Now, again, she wasn't she wasn't the lead per se. She was a supporting role, but she was a strong character. 100%. Yep. I agree with you. Let's see here. Holly Klein says, but my 8-year-old is obsessed with Back to the Future. Well, that's awesome, because I find that if you actually are able to, as a parent, if you are able to, because it's, parenting is nature versus nurture, right? If you're able to actually, nurture your kids from a very young age, like if Bruce had shown his kids The Goonies when they were like 3, then it would have been a different thing. But they sat down to watch The Goonies when they were like 10 and 8 for the first time. That's a little too old to watch an ancient to them motion picture, right? So, if you try to nurture the kids earlier and you sit down and watch with them and, you get into it and you show them this kind of stuff, then maybe it might work, right? Because they have a nostalgic connection to it now because of watching it with you, and then it becomes part of their childhood. It feels like it's organically created into the fabric of their childhood, rather than by the time they're 10 or 11, you just say, here, watch this. This is a movie Dad used to watch. You know what I mean? Then it becomes kind of like, but that's awesome, Holly. I think that's awesome. Holly's a great supporter a great supporter of the channel, by the way. So it's just awesome. Let's see here. Franklin Stein says, I saw Elm Street when I was 3. What does that say about me? Screw that, my older sister. Yeah, I probably was older than 3, but I was about the same age. I was in and around there. Super chat comes in from Tommy Ricknell. Thank you, buddy. He says, I thought Alita was one the best female movie heroes in a long time. Original and fresh. Hope to see more. I couldn't agree more. I loved Alita Battle Angel. I love that movie. I saw it in the theater with my girlfriend. We went out for dinner one night downtown Toronto, and we decided to walk over to the, for those of you that live in the city or know the city, we walked over to the John Street theaters, and we watched Alita Battle Angel, and we loved it. We thought it was great and so good. I enjoyed it so much that I am hoping that Disney, who now owns Fox, of course, I'm hoping that Alita they still do a sequel to it, because I just loved it. I thought it was really, really well done. Certainly, in terms of the quality of the film and the story of the movie, certainly warrants a sequel. Now, the box office receipts, unfortunately, do not. But I don't know what the DVD sales or the Blu-ray and 4K sales are. I'm not sure what they are or what the downloaded sales are like, but I'd be curious to know what they are like, because I'm hoping that they do another one, because I agree with you, Tommy. I love that movie. And that is, although digitally created, it's not an original character. It is based on source material. But in terms of its presentation, it was a strong female lead, and that had heart, that had faults, that had layers, and obviously because she's not even real. I mean, she's a robot for all intents and purposes, right? So it was something that I thoroughly enjoyed, and it was it was a good story. I'm not saying it was, oh my God, it's amazing, but it was good. Like it was fun. It was fun to watch, right? People, men, women, black, white, Asian, tall, short, whatever you are, gay, not gay, we all want good stories at the end of the day. That doesn't mean that we don't like fluff fart films from time to time. Of course, who wants to go see a dumb comedy from time to time? Just pop one in, have some popcorn. It's fun, it's great. Who cares, right? But at the end of the day, we just want good stories, and that's the most important thing. And nobody wants to feel like they're being told how to think. And she's just so important. Robert Kitzmiller says, The Descent, one of my favorite movies of all. Oh, there you go. There's another great example. The Descent. That's a great movie. If you guys have not seen The Descent from 2005, that's a great movie. The Descent funny enough, was the first movie I ever did a trailer for. It was, I think it's on my channel. If you YouTube The Descent Dave McRae, I think it should come up. I posted it on my channel. It was the first movie trailer I ever voiced back in 2005. And I voiced it before I actually saw the film. And when I saw the film, I was like, I own it, of course, because it's such a good movie. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Another good one as well, with a lot of psychological layers. It's a foreign film from 2003, I believe, is Switchblade Romance, or commonly known here in North America as High Tension. That's a really good movie. And let's just say that things are not what they seem, but of course it has a female lead. A lot of horror movies have female leads, but there's reasons for that. Women generally, when placed in a position of danger, are physically more vulnerable than men. So there's a stereotype around that. That doesn't mean that there are not, again, I'm saying generally speaking, it doesn't mean there are not kick-ass women that can kick the crap out of me and you. But I'm saying that that's sort of the cliche and the trope, because women, when placed in a position of danger, are generally more vulnerable than men. And so, to be fair, that is a trope that was sort of created probably because of that. That's why we see a lot of women in positions as like the final girl, whether it's Halloween, Elm Street, Friday the 13th, When a Stranger Calls, The Descent, whatever it is, you see a lot of women in those positions because they are generally more vulnerable. And therefore it becomes more believable that they would struggle as much as they do against a male antagonist. So it becomes more psychologically believable in that way for the viewing audience, even though you might not be thinking about that consciously. That's sort of where it goes. But having said that, there are wonderful examples, like we just said, about strong women in those types of roles. And because the stories are so good, we believe it, we buy into it. And that's why, I want to believe that there are, because I speak to them. And again, that doesn't mean that there aren't. Of course, there are sexist, racist, misogynistic guys out there and pigs. There are sexist women out there too. They exist. But I think the vast majority of us, at the end of the day, like I said, just want good stories with good character. I don't care if it's female or male. I just want a good story. And I think men really want, listen, a powerful, I can't speak for everybody, but a powerful, independent woman, strong in a role, sexy. It's attractive. I don't just mean physically if she's attractive, but it's an attractive quality. It's fun to watch that kind of character play out, like a Ripley or a Connor or a Laurie Strode or a Nev Campbell, Sydney. It's fun to watch that play out, because it's cool shit. Gary Project says, computer-generated Weird Eyes, Alita was not for me. Hey, that's all right. Hey, not for you. Not totally cool. I thoroughly enjoyed the movie, but that's what makes this so great. We don't always have to agree. Holly Klein says, I want a story that takes me away from the stress of daily life. Don't we all? Could not agree with you more there. The False Prophet says, Aliens is the greatest example. It's a great example, and it's a very early example, especially at, 1978? 79? I think it was 79. It's a great example because of that climate as well. You didn't see women in those roles. Contrary to popular belief, you're seeing more women in roles of authority and power, in action and things like that, than we ever have at any point in time ever in the history of entertainment and motion pictures. We are. We are seeing it more and more every day in movies than at any other point in time in the history of motion pictures. That doesn't mean the movies are good. That doesn't mean the movies are not forgettable, right? I mean, we have to remember too that a lot of these movies are garbage, not because they're female leads, but because the stories are just garbage, or because it just wasn't good, or it just it didn't work for me, or whatever the case is. Like, Gary says, Alita just didn't, work for him, right? But we are in a time and place where there are amazing female-led movies all over the place, right? So it's just a matter of hitting the right stories and the right sort of, to give them the right opportunities to flourish on their own. That's what's so important to me about all this, it's just, it's because that way you're truly then lifting them up to give them you give them the same money you would a man, you give the movie the same budget, the same resources, right? The same this, the same that, you do everything the same, but the story and the IP must be able to stand on its own. That's important. That doesn't look. Some are going to hit, some are going to miss. It's the nature of the business. Even Spielberg has, delivered a couple of movies. You're like, it happens, right? Let's see here. Chris Baber sends in a super chat. Check your mail soon. Okay, I will, buddy. Thanks so much for the super chat. Chris Baber, of course, great supporter of the channel. Let me see here. Jonathan Nichols says, thoughts on why the new Charlie's Angel failed so badly? Well, I don't know. I haven't seen the movie, but I think we would all be remiss if we did not at least point out to the fact that does anybody give a fuck about a Charlie's Angels movie? It's easy to say, oh, it's 3 women, strong women. Nobody wants to see it, all the men. Well, listen, if a movie fails, that means women aren't going to the theaters either. Now, I believe statistically, more men go to the theaters than women, generally speaking anyway. But still, a lot of women go to the theaters. And, I don't know. Is it a good movie? Is it a bad movie? I'm not sure. I haven't seen it. But I do know that I don't think there's a need for a Charlie's Angels movie. I don't think there's a calling for it. There's a desire for it. I found it strange that they were rebooting it again. Because I thought, does anybody want this? Like, maybe you should make an original spy movie with 3 women. They're not spies per se. I guess they kind of are, right? They're kind of secret agents. But make an original story about 3 women who are spies, right? A really cool, like James Bond-esque intent. Get Fincher to direct it or something, right? It's about setting yourself up and giving yourselves the best probability of success. Listen, this is show business. I understand that the numbers matter. And, the studio executives make decisions. It's why, by and large, they shouldn't be involved in the creative aspects of making a movie. And they are. They have the final say because they're the ones providing the money. But it disappoints me because I think there are a lot of things, I cannot help but feel that, a studio executive has a daughter that comes to him and says, I really like that Charlie's Angels film from 2003 or 2 or 2000, whatever it was, or, and then just he or she happens to be like, oh, you know what? Well, my daughter really liked that movie. I think we should make a reboot of that. And they're not taking into consideration that, is the climate calling for it? Do we need it? Do we want it? So it kind of springs up and everybody's like, okay, whatever. It's not one I need to rush out to the theater to see. So again, I don't know if it's a good movie or a bad movie, but with Charlie's Angels, I would suspect that might have been part of it. It was a strange sort of thing. Did anybody ever, need it? Or did people calling for it, I should say. I don't think so. I know I wasn't. Kevin Fishgall Super Chat says, last night I accidentally stumbled upon your 2011 short film, The Intruder. Awesome watch, Dave. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. Yeah, for those of you that haven't seen it, I have a short film I did, low budget B-movie amateur film I did in 2011 called The Intruder. It's on my channel. If you YouTube Dave McRae, The Intruder, it'll pop up and you'll get to see it. It's basically a tip of the hat to the first 20 minutes of the original When a Stranger Calls from 1979, I believe. So you can check that out. So it's about what is it, Kevin? It's about, a 15-minute movie, something like that? 16 minutes? Something like that. And that was a lot of fun to do. So, yeah. Check it out if you haven't seen that already. Let me see here. Blu-ray Addict says, yeah, Monster is fantastic. Wish it was on Blu-ray, man. Charlize Theron. Monster is... Now, to be fair, that's more of a biopic, but that is an example of a female-led movie with a great story that people love. She won her Academy Award for that, So yeah, that's a great movie. I saw that in the theater when it came out. That was fantastic. Charlize just killed it. Sarah Carter says, looking at the uncut version now. Oh, she's talking to somebody else. Okay. Hey, Sarah, how you doing? Let's see. Erlen Stein says, the woman in blue is the warmest color, was great. I'm not sure what you're referring to there, but maybe you're talking to somebody else. Julian Salgado, literally every horror movie has strong female lead. That's where the word scream queen came from. Well, that's true. And like I was just saying a few moments ago, the primary reason for that is because women are generally more vulnerable in situations like we find them in horror movies. So therefore it becomes more believable that a woman would have trouble fighting back because of the strength, differential, right? Like there's reasons for why we see women generally as the main protagonist in horror films. Years ago, it sort of started like that, especially with Psycho, right? Because that was, Janet Leigh was a bona fide star. And to see again, this is 1960, to see a bona fide star go down in such a horrific, almost graphic, exploitative sort of way. It's very tame compared to now. But in 1960, it's like, what the fuck? It was like, what the hell, right? That was just crazy. If that had been a man, it would have been less believable. Not that Norman Bates wouldn't have ended up killing the man, but it would have been less believable, right? Because of the physical strength sort of difference between men and women. And again, I'm talking generally speaking, right? The why that horror trope and cliche became a thing, because the female is usually vulnerable in that sort of a position. Now that doesn't mean that we don't see men in that position, because we do, right? But in terms of that sort of focus and that lead, but hey, they also end up rising above and end up getting, the win at the end of the day as well, right? Which is always really cool. So love that. Sarah Carter says, hey Dave, we are talking High Tension. Frank says he loves the lead. Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah, High Tension is a great movie. It's a foreign film, French film, I believe, subtitled, psychological, different layers there. I highly recommend it if you haven't seen it. Dr. Splinter says, do you think that It's Me, Billy will be better than Black Christmas 2019? Well, I'm not going to have the production budget that they had on Black Christmas 2019. It's a short film, but I will say this, that our short film is honoring the original source material of what came before. There is no political narrative or message in the movie. It's just honoring what came before, advancing that narrative, of where that would be 45 years later. It's a short film. It'll probably end up being between 20 and 30 minutes long. That's all I can say at the moment, because I don't want to give too much away, but definitely Billy is back. Let's just put it that way. And funny enough, the idea that Bruce and I have written around this, we're actually like, this actually could totally be like a feature-length film in terms of but we started with a short because obviously it's not cheap, but it will cost less. Our Indiegogo campaign will launch probably like I said, probably in April. And we haven't done the budget breakdown yet, but we're probably looking at between 30 and 40,000. We're hoping to raise. So hopefully we can do that. Anyway, okay, we'll go for another minute or so here before I call it a day on the first episode of McRae Live. Nick sends in a super chat, says, the Final Cut is a great Robin Williams film too. The Final Cut, I don't know if I've ever heard of that one. I love him in 1 Hour Photo. That was fantastic. I don't know if I've ever heard that one. Julio Muniz says, burger or hot dogs? Ooh, depends on my mood, but I think I'm a burger guy. But it depends on my mood. Chris Baber says, question, how do you feel about Blum announcing 2 Halloween movies? Thoughts on this affecting Halloween Kills if Ends is coming 1 year later? It's a great question, Chris. It doesn't surprise me because of the box office success of Halloween, Halloween 2018. I think it grossed something like $250 million worldwide. It was insane. One of the highest grossing slasher. Well, I believe it is the highest grossing slasher movie of all time. It doesn't surprise me. Look, winning solves everything. And if David Gordon Green and Danny McBride have an idea of where it could go, which they did originally, because originally they were going to make this they were originally, were going to shoot 2 movies back to back. So I assume that Halloween Kills is, at least for the most part of that idea. I suspect by the little teaser we saw that Halloween Kills, as I predicted as well months ago, because of sort of how it ends and sort of just the natural organic progression that I think makes sense. Halloween Kills will pick up immediately where the first one left off. That makes sense. Whether Halloween Ends is a continuation of that, picking up where Halloween Kills left off, I don't know. To have 3 movies all take place in one night, I think is ballsy and risky, but maybe all 3 films will. Who knows? Maybe Halloween Ends is not just talking about the series ending, but talking about the night ending. I mean, maybe Halloween 2018 begins, where it does, and then Halloween Kills is like from 11 o'clock at night to 2 o'clock in the morning, which I know technically is November 1st. But then, Halloween Ends is like from 2 o'clock in the morning till 6 a.m., when the sun comes up. I mean, who knows how they're going to do it, but do I think it's going to affect the box office? Listen, statistically, and we can quantify this, and that doesn't mean that there are not sequels that make more, but by and large, sequels usually make less than the original, especially when there is a massive anticipation around the original film. The anticipation for Halloween Kills is not nearly as high as the anticipation was for Halloween 2018. So will Halloween Kills make less at the box office? Probably. That doesn't mean it's not going to be a bomb, that it's not going to be good, but it will probably make less, unless it's just wildly incredible and far superior than the 2018 film. But generally speaking, it will probably make less, and Halloween Ends will probably make less than Halloween Kills. That's usually the pattern that you see. I think what would have affected the box office were so I don't think it's going to affect it too much, but do you remember the rumor that they were going to release Halloween Kills at like the beginning of October in 2020 and then release Halloween Ends at the end of October? Do you remember that ridiculous rumor? Which I said, they're not going to do that. They would never do that. I'm not saying that we'll never see that, but to do that, you're eating yourself. I mean, you release a movie, your movie, if it's really good, is still maybe playing hot a couple of weeks later, and you release another movie, you're going to eat into your own box office. You're totally doing a disservice to each movie. And the enormous cost and marketing behind that would be ridiculous to get the average moviegoer to understand what's going on. You and I would understand because we're big Halloween fans, but the average moviegoer would be like, what the how is that the same movie? What the fuck's going on? No, it'd be that would be a big mistake. Releasing it a year later, not so much. But don't be surprised if Halloween Kills doesn't make as much as the 2018 film, and same with Ends, even if they are actually pretty good. Generally, that just sort of is what happens because the novelty and the anticipation is not as high as it was. So more and more moviegoers are like, I'm not rushing out to see it. I'll catch it on DVD, there you go. I'll catch it on, Blu-ray, download, whatever, right? But what will help it is that they are releasing it in October again. I mean, let's not forget that prior to the 2018 film, the last Halloween movie to actually release in the month of October was Halloween 5 in 1989. That was the last movie that actually was released in the month of October. The last Halloween film, excuse me. So that was smart to finally release a Halloween movie in October. I mean, finally. So no doubt that Halloween Kills and Ends will benefit from that as well. But whether it'll make $250 million at the worldwide box office, I don't know about that. David says, really great show, Dave. Keep up the great work. Thanks, David. Much appreciated. Let me see here. Oliver Mercer says, I'd love to know Halloween Kills and Ends runtime. Well, let's just look at the probability of what comes before. It's probably going to be between... I say there's a good bet that it will probably be anywhere between 90 or 100 and 110 minutes. I don't think it'll quite hit 2 hours, but I wouldn't be surprised if when the runtime is released, you're looking at longer than an hour and a half, below 2 hours. That's usually where these types of movies fall. Gary Project says, "Oh my God, your movie will be better than Blumhouse, guaranteed. You respect the material." Well, I hope so, man. We're putting our blood, sweat, and tears into this. I mean, as Canadians from Toronto, the original being a Canadian movie shot in Toronto, we feel really sort of, a personal thing with this, and we want. That doesn't mean everybody. Listen, not everybody's going to like what we do. Maybe you won't like what we do. We have no control over that. But at the end of the day, we want to set ourselves up to give ourselves the best probability of success, honoring and respecting the source material. And then we let the chips fall where they may. And we'll see what happens. And if it is really successful in terms of getting a lot of online buzz, maybe it goes a little bit of viral, right? People really like it. Well, we have some ideas for a follow-up. So don't want to say too much because we want to concentrate on the first one. But we'll see what happens. Okay, let me see here. 5 more minutes. I'll go 5 more minutes, folks. 5 more minutes. That'll bring us right to an hour and a half on this first episode of McRae Live. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I'll be back. I'll get to all that in a minute. Johnny Coffee says, "Dave, I remember in one of your Rise of Skywalker, you wish there was the ghost of the Jedi coming up as they spoke to Rey. I heard they wanted to do that or something, but they didn't." Well, listen, in regards to the J.J. Abrams cut, I'm gonna probably talk about that on a future show. It's far too in depth to talk about here in the remaining minutes that I have in the broadcast. But let me just say that, you know what? It's really hard to get into with that because you guys know me. I can be verbose and I get really into it because I'm really passionate. It's hard to get into it in the remaining time that we have. So I'll leave that for a future show, but just know that I'm aware of this cut and this cut and that cut and all that kind of jazz. I'll talk about it. Caleb Ella says, Dave knows what's up on how to do Black Christmas, the intention anyway. Well, hey, I hope so, man. We're really excited about it. We are taking this to we're not just doing this sort of like, with our own stuff. We're our own gear. Cause I have gear that I can go out and shoot and, and have some fun. And obviously, the tiny little fan films that I have on my channel are just fun shit. They're just me busting out my camera and shooting some stuff and trying to get the mood and all that kind of stuff. But this is a project that Bruce and I are going pro on. And obviously working in the entertainment industry, Bruce working at White's, where he does and having the access to the White's, for those of you that don't know, are Canada's largest distributor of motion picture, theatrical and television lighting and grip gear. And Bruce is the national manager of education and training there. So, and he's been there for years and years and years. And so when Hollywood comes to Toronto or to Canada, by and large, of course, we do have competitors, but by and large, they go to William F. White International to rent all of their lights and their gear and their generators and their jibs and their cranes and their cameras and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to utilize that because we have access to it, not for free, obviously, but we have access to this gear, and we really want to deliver the best possible product that we can for Black Christmas fans, because coincidentally enough, there's no Black Christmas fan film online. Now, when I say that, that doesn't mean that you might not be able to find one somewhere. But when you YouTube Black Christmas fan film, something comes up that's like 30 seconds long, home movie, amateur, thing. But beyond that, there's Black Christmas fan cuts. There's fan cuts of a trailer or this, but there isn't a bona fide, like if you YouTube Halloween fan film, my God, it's like somebody, like they're everywhere. Friday the 13th, Elm Street, although there's very little Elm Street. That's sort of, one of the reasons why Cecil from the horror show wanted to do this, at this level, because there's very far and few between. There are some, but very far and few between on this level. So we were like, you know what, let's do this. Let's let's make a Black Christmas fan film that we can be proud of, and hopefully you guys as fans of the original can be proud of too, because we saw a void, in this area that we would like to fill. And who better to do it than two guys who are filmmakers in Toronto, from Toronto, have that, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of cool that way. So we'll see how it goes. Okay. 1 minute left. Frank Stein says there is no Hike Alone for Black Christmas There is no hike alone for... Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, well, there's no hike alone for a lot of fan film. Let's be honest, right? So I agree. That's the production value that we're hoping to deliver. Now, in order to deliver that production value, that costs money, right? That's one of the reasons why we're going to be starting the Indiegogo campaign, because we want to be able to deliver the best possible product possible. So we're excited about it. If you want to follow the official It's Me Billy Facebook page, it's in the description below. I believe it's the first link that pops up. So that's where we'll be posting all sorts of updates and all that kind of jazz. So we're excited about it. Dr. Splinter says, thanks for doing this during the weekday. I was happy to have something to listen to at work other than your two dudes reruns. No problem, man. Lauren Downing says, and shout out to all the stunt peeps. My grandfather was a stuntman a long time ago, worked a lot with James Garner. They are underappreciated for sure. 100%. Listen, the stunt coordinators, the stunt men and women, by the way, do not get the credit they deserve. So I could not agree with you more there. 100%. Absolutely. Mark Williams says, was at the movies last night, saw the trailer for The Invisible Man, loved it, but Blumhouse trailers really do show a lot of their movies. Yeah, they do. I liked the trailer for The Invisible Man, but they did show a lot. I'm more excited about Lee Whannell, who is directing that movie, who directed Upgrade, who was sort of almost in some sort of, not really, but sort of James Wan's kind of, I don't know, assistant per se, even though he wasn't really, but he worked with, of course, Wan on the Saw film. He worked with Wan on Insidious Chapter 1 and 2. He was in Insidious films. He directed, I believe, the third Insidious movie. He's actually a pretty decent director. I like his directing sensibilities. So I'm really curious to see what he does with The Invisible Man. If his past work is any indication, it's probably not going to be that, it's probably going to be all right. It's probably going to be legit. Like, it's not bad. I don't mean necessarily like, holy fuck, but it'll be like, it was pretty good, So I am excited to see that as well. Listen, folks, I got to skedaddle here. So that is going to do it for episode 1 of McRae Live. I want to thank for each and every one of you for tuning in, sending in your super chats, sending in the questions as you do, and listening to me for the first hour rant on about what I did, about how I thought that the Black Christmas remake, unfortunately, has done a disservice to itself with the reasons that I said. So if you're tuning in late, you can go back and watch that and hear me out of what I have to say. It's not a knock on Jason Blum. It's not a knock on Sophia Takal or April Wolf. It's just, I think they let the political climate and views get ahead of telling a good story. And unfortunately, I think they've done a disservice by calling it Black Christmas. They just should not have done that. It's too bad they did, because you're not allowing the movie and your message to have the opportunity to stand on its own 2 feet. I think I froze, but I'm back. Okay, cool. Yeah, unfortunately, you're not giving the movie the opportunity for it to stand on its own 2 feet. And that was so important, especially when there's a message that you want to deliver. It's unfortunate. Anyway, that is going to do it for me for this episode of McRae Live. I'll be back Thursday morning at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then again Friday morning at 11 o'clock Eastern time as well. So make sure you tune in for that. So that is going to do it for me. So in the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you guys soon. Alrighty. Cheers.